Welcome to Queued Up with Ziz and Pam. The question on the table that we've been talking about is, are we preparing students for life in the 21st century? So you know what, Pam, it just dawned on us based on some of the feedback we've been receiving is then, how do these two meet? How did I meet Pam? And you know, to be honest with you, because my memory these days is so, I don't even remember what I did yesterday. What I do remember though is your blog post. So how did we meet? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think Dr. Addison Zhang, who talks a lot about education and what it means to be educated. She's a former professor, and she started a classroom without walls, which we both were so intrigued with her journey, her entrepreneurship. She resigned from her post to really form a whole new type of education that she thought was responsive. And she tagged both of us in one of her posts that she made. And so you, I think, read my blog and reached out to me. And so my question to you is, what was it about my blog which challenges so much about this traditional trajectory and traditional educational paradigm and how we're preparing kids? What challenge made you interested?
Well, first of all, shout out to Dr. I. Actually, she got her PhD from my alma mater, University of Maryland. So thank you, Dr. I. Always go Terps. So, you know, it's interesting, just having read your blog and so many of the other articles, I was like, wow, this is exactly what I'm thinking. Because you push the envelope, you ask teachers, the system, parents to kind of step outside of the box and ask the question, are we doing the right things for our students to really prepare them for what it is that they're going to face? Which, having 3 children of my own, I tried to do that. I think I reference my youngest son, who basically said, Dad, I got this. You don't need to ask me about my class anymore. I got this. And I heard him. So all of the things that you've been writing about really resonated with me because of what you were saying. And then as I talked to teachers and interacted with them during my days that I spend in schools mentoring and supporting and coaching students, you know, you start to look at it and you go, wow, Pam is right on target, and you see it. You know, a quick example would be just seeing a student who might be struggling in one particular subject and not struggling in another subject, and if and actually not just not struggling, but also loves that particular subject. So it's like, why aren't we allowing that student the flexibility to really gain more mastery in that particular subject? And then maybe that other subject, we sort of go, okay, hey, look, here's how that intertwines in that subject that you love. So I like the fact that you push the boundaries. It was speaking my language, and not only that. I mean, actually, I was actually doing a series and interviewed you about what are our children's superpowers. And I think when you start to think about it in that way, like, what are our children's superpowers, just trying to figure out, like, asking parents, like, what is your child really good at beyond the subjects that they're taking in school?
Yes, and what's so interesting about that, and I'll get into my own journey in a second, is that in the workplace, the kids that actually focus on things they're interested in, the B and C students, even kids with dyslexia or autistic kids, those are the ones that are getting jobs. Those are the entrepreneurs. And 35% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. You know, B and C students become our millionaires because they think outside of the box, and valedictorians, as we've discussed in previous episodes, don't. They are conformists. They are generalists across all the subjects and really don't dive deep into their passion. So for me, I drank the cultural Kool-Aid of everybody had to go to college and that this was really important to my kids, and it was really going to be how they were going to be successful, until I began looking around and seeing, why are all these families, there's no time, the kids aren't playing. I was always fighting the system. I even pulled my kids out of traditional education and put them in an alternative school that had no homework, so that I could protect their childhood. And so I was always looking at this saying, wait a minute, because I myself was young. I was kind of a kamikaze businesswoman. I graduated college, became a partner at 27 for a real estate consulting firm, worked, reached whatever that pinnacle was of the, office staff, making money, having the car, buying the condo. And yet I didn't leave time for life. And so when I married late, I didn't marry till I was 35, and started having children, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And suddenly this system came in and started demanding my family's time, and not honoring this wonderful, unique individuality I saw in my children. And so I became just a fighter for this, trying to find ways to navigate. As a matter of fact, I was working on a book, and one of the pitches is, how do you save your child from being eaten by the education machine?
Wow.
Us telling them that the only way they're validated and valued is by some external measurement. And we're seeing what that's done. So then I began to see, as my kids entered a very intense private school, that even narrowed their definition, which we now know high achieving schools, those kids are considered at risk, even higher risk than kids in poverty, because they have no ability to breathe and be who they are and explore who they are, and all those things that we've talked about. But so my own journey was discovery as well. And so when I went back to NYU, which I didn't graduate, I'm a grad school dropout, because I finished all the coursework, did the practicum, sat in a high school as they're telling kids, and I was trained to tell kids, if you just study more, you're going to get out of your depression. And I'm thinking, this child is perfect. This system is flawed. I need to advocate for them to be able to be validated for who they are, and finding a place in the world that works for them, and that we need to create a system that allows for that.
Which really speaks to the work of Viktor Frankl and identity. And that's really key, is someone knowing who you are, understanding how you fit into the system. I mean, forget the system for a moment, even within a family,
Mm-hmm.
even within the community. I mean, those things are so important. And it's interesting because I think, when you think about private schools that are religious based, they have what they call Kairos, and they do that trip, I think, in their junior year. And it's that exploration of, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you fit into society? And then, of course, they have the religious aspect of, in the eyes of your creator, how do you fit? So
Mm-hmm.
they even do it. They might be doing it a little at the latter part of their high school experience, but it is a part of their experience. So it speaks to what we're talking about.
Exactly. And I think, but you don't need to find it in a school. And I think that is, for me, the issue is that we have made school the center of our lives, and it's inadequate. It isn't even responsive to the new market, what's happening in the new world of work. And because we rely on this system, we have, which goes to Viktor Frankl's point, we have not taken our personal responsibility as parents, as community members, to facilitate learning everywhere. We say it only happens in schools, and then the schools have to feed kids, and the schools have to do career, which they can't because they're not even aware. Even if every teacher went into the marketplace today and tried to learn, they would already have outdated information by the time they went back. So we have to break down those school walls and get our kids into the community, expose them. And this starts with us. Parents are like, well, the schools, they want this. No. We have the power to say, no, my kids, I fought them on every AP class they wanted to take. I was like, whoa, are you interested in this? It is standardized testing. So it's teaching you to see things in only a certain way as having a finite answer. And I know as an adult, and you know this too, Ziz, as an adult, it's really the questions. It's really many ways of approaching things.
It's so interesting you say that. I've had the experience in talking to students in a large group of students, and you'll ask a question and it's like crickets. It's like, whoa, where'd they go? Like, what's going on? Or even if they know the answer, they won't necessarily speak up. So you're right.
Yes.
It's trying, it's frustrating on a lot of parts because we know they know this, or they have the answer, or they have questions. And it's like, how do we get them out of that? So I basically we're saying the system isn't working.
No, and I think most people know when I talk or do workshops or whatever, I do not tell people anything they don't know. I say I turn the light bulb on, just like you when you read the blog and you're like, "Whoa, I didn't think of it that way." But we haven't questioned it. We just, oh, well, this is what you're supposed to do, not realizing how dramatically our economy has changed. And as Dr. Tony Wagner, who you just sent me the new book he has coming out, which I'm so excited to read. And he lectured, came to our school and talked, and he said, Google changed the world. And by that, our system became obsolete because having knowledge is not enough. The application of knowledge. But this is why Dr. I was so frustrated, is that she was like, kids only care, they'd only come to these interesting speakers I worked so hard to get if they were going to be able to get a point, because
Right.
that was their motivation. That's what we've trained kids to do, to be almost a Pavlov's dog. Ring the bell, go do this. But it's not motivated inside.
So it's interesting, Tony Robbins, I think most people know who Tony Robbins is. I've listened to him over the years, and he said that exactly. Knowledge is not enough. Application of that knowledge or application of that information is what's important. And that's the difficulty in the system in which we have. I know schools are making adjustments, so to speak, project-based learning, trying to do some other things here and there, but it's probably not enough within the system. And that's kind of the problem. So it's like, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I wrote a blog on this, which was What Now? And really, it's moving the reliance on the school to do everything and break down those silos. We live in silos. We live in our homes, we live in our workplaces, and we live in our schools. And everything is in a silo. We have to break down these silos and create infrastructure, which means we all need to mentor up. Okay, parents need to say, hey, businesses need to jump in and say, okay, it's not just about my kids, it's our kids. I have to invest in the community, which we're seeing happening, where new types of schools are being started by parents, by educators like Dr. I, who said, wait a minute, this isn't working. And also by businesses who are saying, we do not have the kind of workers, even when they get a high school graduate, just a high school graduate, that are able and prepared to think the way we need them to think. And it's because our schools focus on compliance, right? Raise your hand, move with the bell, go isolated subject to isolated subject. And that's not how the world works. That compliance is a disadvantage in today's world.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. And on our next segment, let's talk more about those businesses, those teachers who are a part of this process of changing the system and starting new schools. So thank you everyone for joining us on this particular segment. Join us on our next segment where we talk about what's actually happening in the marketplace. Feel free to reach out and ask questions at Queued Up with Ziz and Pam. Thank you.
Thank you.